All right, we'll start. So welcome to today's webinar, From Classroom to Clinic, the Value of OSHA 10-Hour in Healthcare Pathways. I'm Michelle, a CareerSafe instructor with 15 years of experience as a classroom educator. We are super excited about this training as we have a lot of resources to help educators and students with their OSHA safety training journey. And a journey it is. Our goal today is to highlight the importance of safety training and the integration of safety into your classroom, equipping you with strategies that make sense for your students and your curriculum. I'm joined by my colleagues, also both former educators, Justin and Caroline, who will be in the chat today to share support as we go, and they'll be able to answer any questions you may have. Caroline will also be dropping a ton of links into the chat here with other resources for you, so please pay attention to the chat, or if there's anything you want more info, I guarantee you Caroline has dropped a link already, so head on over to the chat. The recording of this webinar will be sent out, so please look forward to that in your email. There is also an opportunity at the end of the presentation to request copies of all of the resources that we've shared, and we are going to share a lot. So please make sure that you tune into that for the QR code at the end so that you can go ahead and receive digital copies to use, to share. We want you to have them. So what we will cover today. Today, we will start with why OSHA is so important in healthcare pathways. If I could shout it from the rooftops, I would. It's so important. We will also look at some of our educator features and student benefits within the CareerSafe campus, just to make sure everyone knows what they need and to set all of you teachers and students up for success. We will take a look at course pacing, sharing various options for how to include the required OSHA seat time into the curriculum in ways that make it engaging and fun. We'll also look at a few teaching approaches that lend themselves effectively to the integration of online training into the traditional classroom. And finally, we'll explore ideas for various ways that you can connect the curriculum from the OSHA 10-hour to the learning experiences that you're engaging your students and your peers in the classroom in order to scaffold learning. The overall goal today is to help students apply what they're learning in the OSHA 10 course to CTE pathways within the labs or the shop in school, as well as their future careers. In healthcare, safety is the foundation of everything. My mom was a nurse. My stepfather is a doctor. I grew up in the hospital. And I can tell you it is truly the foundation of all healthcare. For students in CTE healthcare pathways, OSHA training builds the skills to protect not only themselves, but also their coworkers and their patients who depend on them. You can see there's various stats that we have on the screen here that show you recent injury and fatality numbers, as well as subsectors within that have the highest injury rates, as well as non-fatal workplace violence incidents. Health and safety go hand in hand. The OSHA 10-hour healthcare course takes that safety training a step further. It's a nationally recognized credential that demonstrates a real commitment to workplace safety. CareerSafe is at the forefront of that. We are the only provider offering youth-focused training, a course tailored to the healthcare pathways, and we are in the OSHA Alliance program. And as you can see by representation on our call here today, we have a lot of former educators who work at CareerSafe across the board. So we are custom tailoring content, whether it's curriculum development, it's quality assurance, it's account executives, it's internal instructors. We are preparing this so that your students and your peers can be successful. As a result, students leave with more than just technical skills. They carry an industry valued credential that employers and post-secondary programs recognize. And for students, it's more than just a card. It's proof that you can recognize hazards, follow safety protocols, and step into clinical settings with confidence. The OSHA 10-hour credential sets you apart, and it gives you that competitive edge and shows employers that you're serious about your future in healthcare. Really, I could shout it from the rooftops, but the OSHA 10-hour as a safety tool and as an industry recognized credential for students is so very important. So if you're in the chat today, I'd love for anyone to drop in why they feel that OSHA safety training is important for healthcare students. If you're a student, drop it in why you feel it's important for you. If you're an educator, why do you think it's important for your students? So I do know that we have a lot of people in classes right now, but some educators and maybe students are on the call as well. So if anyone can drop in the chat why they feel safety training is so important, we know you know, we'd love to share that. I'll give everyone just a moment if anyone's going to drop down some ideas. Absolutely, for them and everyone around them to remain safe. And this is healthcare, everyone knows, is a people-centric field, and there's a lot of people involved in that. We have safety trainings important because it builds experience amongst healthcare providers, learning from those around us. Absolutely, keeps everyone safe. We know that this can sometimes be a high-risk environment for those who work in it, and we want to make sure that everyone stays safe. I see some great things dropping in there, understanding the reasons why it's important to be safe in the job and critical to know this one, how to keep themselves safe and return home every night. Absolutely. Staying well. Our job as healthcare, your job is to keep everyone else healthy and safe, but it's also important for the practitioners to be healthy and safe. Okay, so we're going to start just with a brief look into the CareerSafe campus, touching on some of the key educator features and student benefits. The CareerSafe campus offers several features that have been created with educators in mind. First is customizable lesson plans, which allow for easy submission of your plans in whatever way that you need to submit them to administrators, for substitute plans, for individual students' learning plans. So those customizable lesson plans are super easy for you to use. The gradebook feature makes record keeping easy. It's a way to track student progress, and completion reminders. We'll take a look at that. Caroline will have some materials that she's dropping in here for you. But the gradebook has a number of features for you as an educator. Pre and post testing, which provides baseline assessment data that teachers and administrators can use to show student learning gains. It's also a helpful tool for students to know where they're starting before they jump into the curriculum and to have a sense of understanding what they need to learn. And presentation bundles. These are fully customizable and great for leading whole class review sessions, for individual students with accommodations, or an additional study guide. The campus is different by design as it was developed with a focus on youth learners and CTE classrooms. There are numerous built-in accommodations. This is just a short list with a more expansive list than the one you see on the screen. The fully accessible campus and course sets students up for success. The study guides for each topic are an additional tool to use for reinforcing material. Multiple test attempts. Students have 3 attempts to pass the final assessment with the opportunity to go back and review content before retaking the test. And the tool belt is a feature that allows students to save or pin content that they'd like to review in the future. It bookmarks content in a way that can be easily accessed as they're studying and preparing for the final exam, particularly if they know that there was a topic that they weren't super sure about, they can save that to go back. Okay, so this was just a quick look into some of the features and benefits within our campus. Caroline has also added those links for additional support content in the chat. Thank you, Caroline. Are there any questions regarding the campus? Caroline, have you been tracking anything that's popped up?
No questions have popped up yet, just a lot of really great responses to your last question. I was trying to make sure I gave hearts and 100% for all of them.
Fantastic. Thank you. We love it. Please keep contributing as we go through the presentation here. So now that we've reviewed the importance of safety training in healthcare, as well as educator tools and student benefits within the campus, I am really excited to provide you with content for how to implement OSHA 10 hour in the classroom in a way that cohesively bridges online and classroom learning. So we don't want this to be living in silos. We want it to be that it's cohesive and truly is a great experience for your students. The goal is for you to leave this training able to confidently integrate CareerSafe in your classroom in a way that makes sense for your students, for your curriculum, and for what you have planned in the lab or shop, and whether you have other things going on at school other than the learning objectives outside of the OSHA 10 safety curriculum. The student perspective here also provides key insights into what clicks for them, so I look forward to hearing student ideas too. And I'm really excited for us to jump in here. We've got some great content. So the first thing we'll cover is time to complete a course. And there are some really important housekeeping items here to ensure that students are successful. So each student has 180 calendar days to complete a course in the CareerSafe campus. That is not 180 school days, as in the school year. It is 180 calendar days, which is required and mandated by OSHA. This timer starts when an individual student clicks Start on the course card. We've experienced educators in the past who want to make sure that all of their students have access and who instruct their students to go ahead and hit start just so that they can ensure all their students are in the right place. But they don't have the intent to start at that exact point in time. And as a result, as soon as the students hit start on that card, their timer starts. So we want our educators and students to be aware of the 180 calendar days requirement by OSHA. Educators can track the complete by date for each student, which is displayed in the gradebook based on when the student started the course. For example, if you have a student who's absent on the day that you begin in class or who is added to your roster 2 weeks after the class starts, their complete by date will be different. And the gradebook is where you can track to see when individual students must complete the course within their 180 calendar days that they have to complete it. So this is just something that's really important and we want to stress. I see some comments, so Caroline is going to help you out there in the chat. Seat times by course. The CareerSafe course guides, which are available on our website, feature the course seat time for all courses and then all topics within each course. This is a really great tool for informing how you structure the integration and pacing of including the OSHA 10 curriculum in your classroom, and for students to consider when they're highlighting specific training they've received. So if students would love to say, I've received a certain amount of training in these topics, this is where they'd access how much time they spent in each of those topics. There are required topics, 12 of them here, and supplemental topics. Some of them are 60-minute topics and some of them are 30-minute topics. If your schedule is structured as a 45-minute class, it makes sense to do half of a 60-minute topic or one 30-minute topic in a class sitting. You also have supplemental topics at your disposal, which are automatically included in the campus that you could elect to include, use for enrichment, utilize with a substitute teacher. So there's a lot of opportunities here for use of the supplemental topics as well. So let's look at a 10-hour pacing overview. The 10-hour curriculum should be integrated in your classroom based on the needs of your students and the structure of your learning time. And obviously, you know your students, you know your curriculum and your classroom dynamic. So you are the authority here on what makes the most sense. We're just providing resources to help you shape how you might choose to include online training in your classroom. We have 3 options presented here on the screen, but this is not an exhaustive list of the ways that you can do this. These are just a few options. I'll actually present another example in extended detail in a few slides. The first here that we see is 17 school days, which is based on an average of 40 minutes during every class. Now, this is certainly an approach that anyone could take if they need to get this implemented and they want to do it very quickly. As topics are 60 or 30 minutes, using your full class period for 40 minutes means students are not stopping at the end of just one topic. They might be partway through a topic at this point. They may only get through one and they may just be starting another. Obviously, the course holds their place where a student left off, but we want to consider that retention of content may suffer. You could certainly have students complete within 17 days of full class periods if you choose to take the shortest route possible, but there are other options for integrating the training that complements other classroom learning and provides opportunity for reinforcement of the material. Another option you see here is 5 weeks, which is partial class period of 30 minutes during every single class period. This allows you time for warm-ups, other short learning activities, topics that are in your curriculum outside of the OSHA safety training, and allows the flexibility for students who might need a little additional support or time or assistance. And then a third option presented here you'll see is 11 weeks, which is either one 60-minute topic or two 30-minute topics per week. We'll share a more in-depth example of what this looks like on our next slide. I want to note here that all of these options, all three of them, include flex time for schedule changes. You might have an assembly, there might be standardized testing, or a number of circumstances that impact learning time. So there is flex time built in for all of those. We do want to note that the pre-test, topic assessment, and final assessment are outside of the OSHA 10-hour seat time. This is what is required by OSHA. So there's a little bit of time on top of the required seat time for students to complete this training as required and mandated by OSHA. Also, individual student pacing can influence how quickly or slowly they advance through the curriculum. They might spend a little bit more time on an assessment, or they might go back and review material if they don't answer questions correctly in the assessment. In these pacing timelines, be aware that we are adding some padding to the time. So when we say 17 days or 5 or 11 weeks, all of those have a little bit of time added on. I would like to point out that you can speed up or slow down the pacing of the based on your curriculum for known schedule changes, emphasizing topics with some in-class activities, or accounting for other classroom learning. So we'll take a look at what that can look like in your classroom. So we'll start with 10-hour course pacing over 11 weeks. So this is based on students completing the one 60-minute topic or two 30-minute topics every week. So during week 1, as you can see here, they do the course pre-test, which should take an average of 15 to 30 minutes. And some may finish more quickly and some may need just a little bit more time. The first week also includes an introduction to OSHA, which is a 60-minute topic. Weeks 2 through 7 all feature one 60-minute topic. You might decide to do that 60 minutes in 2 classes, during which students complete 30 minutes in a sitting, or you might decide to do it in 3 classes, and they complete 20 minutes each sitting. It's totally up to you based on the needs of your students, what your other time in your class looks like in your curriculum. Weeks 8 through 9 in this example are all 2 30-minute topics per week. And week 10 features the final 60-minute topic. During week 11 in this example, we've also built in a study session in class. So using pacing over 11 weeks allows you to account for individual student pacing, connected classroom learning, schedule disruptions, and study sessions happening in the classroom. The students would then complete the final assessment and OSHA required survey, which together take an average of about 20 to 40 minutes. We'd like to remind you about the built-in accessibility feature of the course, which includes that assessments can be paused and returned to later. So if you have a student who has an accommodation for extended time on a test, they're able to pause their assessment and go back to it. So you see here, there's a variety of options here. There's opportunity for doing other learning, again, in your curriculum that's not related to the safety training, but also perhaps doing some classroom activities that do bridge the foundation learned in the OSHA CareerSafe OSHA course to what you're also teaching as extending that learning into the classroom as well. I have a second example to show you. So we have, this is not included on the initial slide. This is an 8-week pacing time. So I'm trying to show that there's a number of ways that you can do this, and I'm sure many of you have, and we'd love to hear about it in a few minutes in the chat. But this is an opportunity for you to look at how you can speed up and slow pacing. So this is a shorter span of time than we had in the last example. So we have 3 weeks less time. In weeks 1 and 2, students complete 30 minutes of training every single class period. Your students are getting full exposure in the first 2 weeks, emphasizing the importance of safety both in your classroom and in their careers. So here we do it quite a lot in the beginning. And then the pace slows down, where weeks 3 to 6 are 30 minutes of training twice per week. After front-loading safety training in the beginning, you may now want to get into your lab or your shop. You might want to have your students do some hands-on learning. You can slow down how much you're doing in the CareerSafe online training and accelerate some of what you're presenting as practical learning in the classroom. You may have other disruptions like standardized testing that needs to happen during this time. So it allows you to slow down the students engaging in our online curriculum so that you can address other things in your curriculum outside of the safety training, which we know are important for you to address, and we can slow down how much they're doing in the online. And then you see then in weeks 7 and 8, the pacing speeds up again to 30 minutes 3 times per week. So after slowing the pacing for whatever reason you needed to, now you can ramp up the pace of the OSHA training again. In weeks 8 here, students would also take the final assessment and survey. We did not include a study session in this example. So this faster pace without built-in study session time can work really well if you have students who are great with completing homework or independent learning, and we can help them scaffold putting that study time into their outside of class time. This 8-week schedule is an example of how we can change the pacing for how we integrate it into the classroom in order to best meet the needs of your students, the other learning planned during class time, the requirements of your curriculum, and what else is happening at school. Just wanted to show you the option where it doesn't need to be the same pace throughout the entire time. You can certainly accommodate for what else you have going on in the classroom. So I'd love to share your experience. So for educators, what is your approach to pacing CareerSafe courses or other online content in your classroom? So if you have experience with this and you've done it, we'd love to hear what your approach is and what you find works best for you. So we'll give a minute in the chat if anyone wants to drop in what has been your approach. If you're a student and you've had experience with this as your educator, integrating online learning into the classroom, what have they tried and has it worked and what have you liked? So I welcome you to drop things on into the chat. Maybe you're all learning a ton. You're like, that is the way to go, and I don't have anything to add there. But we'll keep an eye on it, and I'll keep looking. We're not fully done with this section yet, so I can pop over. But I have seen weekly assignments of a 60-minute module each week or 30 minutes, which is really similar, yeah, to what we have here. And we know a lot of educators like to do it that way. Great. So what I can see is a student having an online math class and liking that it goes at their pace, and we love that. That certainly you can build it in if, if there's resources for technology at home as well, and it can be connected between what's happening in the classroom and what's happening at home. That also allows students the time for individualized pacing, which is really fantastic. Okay, any other comments? Keep coming. We'll get back to them. But I do want to talk about some settings within the campus for the OSHA 10 hour. So we have 2 options selected within the settings for each group in the campus. And this will help create boundaries around student pacing and completion. So those 2 features are the assessment locking feature and the stop feature. Assessment locking ensures that educators can intervene if students demonstrate being ill-prepared with 2 failed attempts on the final assessment. So per OSHA requirement, they get 3 attempts to pass that final assessment. This feature, which is on by default, so this is always set on. If you don't want this, you need to go in and turn it off. On by default. If students fail 2 attempts and this feature is on, it allows you to take the time to intervene, to provide them with additional study support, to determine where they might be struggling, to look at the resources. We talked about that tool belt. Perhaps they flagged some content that they need to go back to. They have study guides that are built into the campus. They also have the PowerPoint presentations that they can go back and review. And so there's a number of options we have here as educators to intervene to ensure that students are successful for the third attempt that they take the course. And so this feature on by default helps to set that parameter around being able to provide intervention. The second feature is the stop feature, student time on page. OSHA does require that a certain amount of time be spent in the curriculum. This feature is not on by default. So if you want it on, you need to turn it on. And this feature goes and makes sure that each student spends the specific amount of time to keep them appropriately paced. If this feature is not on and students just advance through the content without taking the actual time it would take, they would be told at the end of that module that they have not spent enough time in the material and they need to go back. So this tool helps to keep all of your students on a level playing field with how much time they're spending in the curriculum, which helps if you are pacing that for them within the class, but also meeting the OSHA requirements for seat time. So these are two really important features. They're together in these settings for each group that can help set some strong boundaries around student pacing within it and ensuring that students do not have to restart the curriculum because they failed a third attempt. It allows you to intervene before that happens. So these are some really great features in the campus. So when to implement OSHA 10-hour? All the time. It's always a great idea to implement OSHA 10-hour curriculum. There are certain benefits to doing it at certain times of the year. And so I'd love to just address those with you. And you might say, like you've said, it's great to start at any time, and it is, but there's certain reasons why you might start at different points. In the first quarter, it starts the year by prioritizing safety. We can motivate students through incentives, that is completion before moving into the shop or the lab. So it's a way to get us energized and set with the foundation we need. And it can also serve as a prerequisite to moving forward into something else within the curriculum. So those are great reasons to start it right at the start of the academic year. Second quarter, we all know that sometimes rosters change and students come in and they come out and they change what they're doing. And so this allows class rosters to be finalized before you begin the online training. Again, as they have those 180 days, if students don't all start at the same time, we can be chasing to make sure everyone is in the correct place with their progression. It also allows us to ease into the curriculum. So you've spent time establishing classroom norms, classroom management, the introduction to content, and now in second quarter, we'd be able to ease into the safety training curriculum. It also builds upon the foundation that's established at the start of the year. So you might be introducing them to everything in the lab and pointing out various components, safety, PPE, sinks and walking. And now that you've seen all of that in the lab, you can reinforce that with the curriculum. It also provides mid-year assessment data. So for anyone who would like to have that mid-year data to report for whatever reason it might be, this would be a great opportunity. For third quarter, second semester kickoff, returning back from break, I know students often feel it can be challenging to get back into the learning mode after being off for a period of time. Educators might also feel like they need something to give a little restart as they return from winter break. This also refreshes and builds upon basic safety taught during the lab or the shop or the classroom during the first semester. Fourth quarter serves as part of a capstone experience. So we can really build this in as a culminating piece. It sets students up for summer internships, which is fantastic. It's fresh on their mind, as well as they will have their card to go right on into that. And it culminates the year and then provides end of year assessment data. So all great options. And we would love to know what time of year you think is great for integrating CareerSafe's OSHA 10-hour into your classroom. So if you've had the experience of doing it before as a student, when did you do it? What were the benefits? So we'd love to hear from you to see if you can drop into the chat. Fourth quarter. I actually myself love a fourth quarter introduction. Justin, do you have a favorite time?
Same, I'm torn between the beginning of the year, because I like starting off strong with safety, and then the end of the year also, whether it's a refresher or we're starting, if you're in your first year of a segment of classes, then moving into that next one, you're well prepared for that next step.
Yeah, I think great reasons. We start in February, which I think again gives you that get back from winter break, get all those jitters and excitement out, and or the sleepiness, and then go in. So I love that February start as well. Great. Really, we believe you can't go wrong no matter any time of year you want to put in, but there's obviously benefits and reasons why we do it at different times of the year. Okay, around pacing and timing, I saw that there were some chats going on, some questions. Caroline was addressing those and providing resources, but were there any other questions as it relates to just the pacing of integrating OSHA 10 into the curriculum? Looks like we are good to go. Teaching approaches. So we have a few options and methods here for integrating online training into your curriculum. The approach that's utilized to integrate this into your curriculum should be based on your teacher preference, the needs of your students, and the design of the classroom and the curriculum. There is no right answer, and this is not the only options that you have for integrating online training into the traditional classroom. These are just 3 options that we feel align very strongly with the CareerSafe curriculum. The 3 approaches that we'll cover are flipped classroom, small group stations, and project-based learning, or PBL. So flipped classroom. So this is a student-centered model where students engage with learning at home, in this case through online training, and then they apply it during the classroom. It might be group activities, simulations, problem solving. So the benefits are active learning. This provides in-class time is focused on application and collaboration. So the content learning is happening at home, and then inside the classroom, they are getting more hands-on. For self-pacing, students are able to control the pace of their content review because they're doing it independently at home. And then in the classroom, we are addressing multiple learning styles. So for connected teacher and learning, the teacher is the facilitator and the guide for hands-on learning during class, and they're able to foster learning connections for their students. So this allows the opportunity for far more engaged instruction. For engagement and mastery, students deepen their understanding with active learning and real-world application. So they are taking what they're learning in the foundational curriculum at home or wherever it might be outside of the classroom, and then they are bringing that to the application inside the classroom. So obviously what this looks like is we are assigned the CareerSafe OSHA 10 topic. They can do it for homework. They can do it in their flex period. If your curriculum has time built outside of the traditional classroom for work to be done, free period, study period, whatever it may be called, students might be able to engage it then. And I would be remiss if I didn't let us know about the potential obstacles to address in order to be successful here. One is ensuring access to technology. So if students have Chromebooks as a part of your school district, then that makes that simple. But if they do not, if they have no form of bringing the technology home, we need to ensure that everyone at home has the technology if we're going to employ this strategy. And again, it could be that there is a lab and there is a computer lab and time must be completed there. We're just ensuring that in whichever way we expect this to happen outside of the classroom, that they have access to technology. And accountability for student completion. If students are not doing the foundational training outside of the classroom, then they wouldn't be able to engage fully in the hands-on learning because they wouldn't have developed the foundation that they need before engaging in the hands-on learning. So flipped classroom is a great option. And when we share these approaches, we are not saying that this would need to happen for every single topic within the entirety of the training, but you might pick a few topics for which this really works. So perhaps when they are learning about PPE, we want them to learn all about it outside of the classroom and then come in and there will be demonstrations and practice with donning and doffing, an opportunity for engaging in the application of the learning. So you might pick a few activities that lend themselves really well to flipped classroom based on building off the foundation of learning that happens with the curriculum. Another option is small group stations. So this is a learning model where students rotate between different activities or centers, including one that is focused on the online training. I would like to note that because of the time span of wanting students to hit one 30-minute session for a topic or a 60-minute, we want to ensure that students have that time. So you might do this as a 3-day activity, and the students are split into 3 groups. And on the first day, one group is doing online training, and one group is doing another small group activity, and one group is working hands-on with the educator. And then the next class, they rotate in those stations. And then the next class, they rotate in those stations. So we want to ensure that students are getting full access to completing, say, one module, one topic within the training. The benefits here are active engagement, is it truly keeps students engaged with multiple learning styles. And connected learning, it engages small group learning with a subset of students, allowing for the educator to have deeper connections with the students and the students to have deeper connections to learning and their content and their peers. So if a simulation that you were walking students through makes more sense to be done with a group of 5 to 8 students, then it makes sense to utilize stations at that time. And certainly the online learning can be one option. Then maybe there is a worksheet that they're completing independently or in groups in another station, and then you're working with a small subset of students in the 3rd station. Again, we want to address obstacles that may challenge your success here, and we just want to ensure that students are staying on track without direct teacher supervision. And if they are sitting on whatever form of technology and they're meant to be in their training, but they're searching the web elsewhere, and then they aren't getting their 30 minutes done, we just want to make sure that we are addressing and having the appropriate structure put in place to keep students on track when they're in those stations. A third option here is project-based learning, which most educators have been exposed to by this point in time. It is a very large movement within curriculum. And I will say before we discuss it that project-based learning is not meant to be a one class time activity. It is meant to be built over a period of time, perhaps week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. And so just keeping that in mind that this may not be tied to one topic or one module within the CareerSafe curriculum, but it might pull a few of them cohesively together, or it might be a 60-minute topic that is so relevant for your pathway that you feel you need to dedicate some extra time to it. So project-based learning is meant to be built up as a larger form of classroom instruction. So here, it's a model that integrates online training into project-based learning where students use online resources and the training to complete a real-world project. That project might address simulations, it might address an overarching problem and provide solutions. So this is truly thinking about bigger picture and how the learning connects to the real world. And so the benefits here are the real world relevance that students apply learning online to demonstrate real world applicability, which we know in your pathways and particularly in healthcare is an obvious. We are taking what they are learning and they are applying that learning. It also has strong elements of collaboration. So it encourages teamwork, communication, collaborative problem solving. So we are often in project-based learning develop the elements of either working in pairs or 3 or 4 students. So it's also fostering those other soft skills that we can integrate in as well for navigating what it means to work on a team. Project-based learning encourages students to ask questions, investigate, explore solutions. So it fosters a deeper understanding of the subject matter. Again, this wouldn't be a one class type deal. This is that you're building this into your curriculum. And the same as I mentioned with the flipped classroom, this wouldn't be across all of the topics within the CareerSafe OSHA 10 curriculum. You might select one topic that's really speaks to doing project-based learning, or 2 or 3 of the topics that work together and incorporate them all into one project-based learning experience. So again, project-based learning typically lasts for that extended period of time so that we can have that in-depth investigation and development of real-world scenarios and solutions. Again, our potential obstacle, just to make sure that we're addressing it, is that we need to have clear expectations for group work and accountability if students are working in pairs or small groups. So share your experience. I do see some chat happening here and I love it. So Caroline's got you guys going. Thank you very much, Caroline. Love to hear it. What teaching experiences have worked best in your classroom experience? And this is from being an educator or a student. So have you experienced at all flipped classroom, project-based learning, or small stations? Have they worked? What have you liked about them? Are there any other approaches that outside of these three that you've utilized to bridge what's happening in the foundation of the online learning into applying that to the actual in the classroom? We've got some flipped classroom and PBL. I love it. I mean, I think obviously being in healthcare lends itself to this beautifully. Okay, I want you thinking about that. And if you have any other ideas, you can certainly drop them in as well. And as mentioned, we have lots of resources for you. So at the end, when you see that QR code, you can certainly go ahead and scan that and sign up to receive the materials. Ooh, we've got Kahoots and other playing games. I love that. No one ever grows tired of those types of games, hence why trivia nights at the establishments are all very fun. I love it, for sure, playing Kahoots. Okay, any questions about, I saw some happening, so I love that they've been going on while we've been chatting. Any other questions about those teaching approaches? Okay, so now we're going to look at connecting OSHA 10-hour to classroom activities. I love this. I would love to hear, as we're going through this, both student feedback as well as educator ideas. And if students also have any ideas here, we're going to talk about bridging what's happening in the foundation built in the CareerSafe OSHA 10 curriculum to what's happening in the classroom outside of learning in the campus. First, before we do that, I would love to see if we can spot the hazard that we see here. So if anyone can spot the hazard, drop it on into the chat for what you see. Give everyone just a moment. It is indeed those gloves. We need to make sure that our PPE is intact because it does not do its job if the PPE is not keeping us safe. And so we definitely see all of those gloves 100%. So our first topic is personal protective equipment, PPE. And this is giving you snapshots of connecting to the OSHA 10-hour general industry healthcare pathway. So what you see here is just a glimpse into the campus. So I just want to remind you of the tools that exist within the campus for you. We have interactive learning all throughout our curriculum. It engages students with scenario-based learning, storytelling, multimedia, and interactive learning. So just want to highlight that that is a huge part of what makes CareerSafe so special, is that instructional designers like Caroline here have built you beautiful interactive courses. We also have the customizable lesson plans at your disposal for your need, again, at whatever you might have to submit lesson plans for or utilize them in your classroom. It's also a great tool if you have new or student teachers. And so excellent tool to have the lesson plans there. And we also have the PowerPoint bundle at your disposal. Again, to include, it's customizable, use it as you'd like, reinforce with students. It also comes in the form of the PowerPoint, but also a handout PowerPoint PDFs. One is 6-slide view per page. The other is 3-slide view with notes per page. So it allows you multiple opportunities to utilize the PowerPoint bundle. So the enabling learning objectives, again, these are designed to map to the terminal learning outcomes at the state level. So our instructional designers have done a full assessment of the terminal learning outcomes at the state level to map our curriculum to that, as well as to what is required by OSHA. So for the PPE, students will be able to explain why PPE is important, list employer responsibilities with regard to PPE and employee safety, list the different types of PPE, describe how to safely don and remove PPE, list the sequence in which PPE should be donned and removed, and evaluate information on selection and use of PPE in healthcare settings. So remembering that that's what they are engaging throughout the interactive learning content within the campus. And here we have for you some suggested learning activities. I do not expect everyone is reading this slide right now. This is just here to show an example. And if you were to provide us with your contact info for us to send it to you, you can receive a handout of all of these materials at the end of the presentation. So this is an example of a culminating experience as a result of learning about PPE in the curriculum. The objective here is that students will accurately identify and select the appropriate PPE for at least 3 different healthcare workplace scenarios, explain their choices by describing the specific safety risks and protective functions, and correctly demonstrate proper donning, use, and removal of the PPE with 100% adherence to safety protocols. So you can see that this takes the foundation of what the students learned, as you saw in the enabling learning outcomes on the prior slide, and it builds upon it to the application where students are then putting it into action. They are applying it, they're explaining their choices. So they're using forms of evaluation and synthesis. They're explaining it, and then they're correctly demonstrating that. So we're taking the foundational learning that's happening in the CareerSafe OSHA 10 curriculum, and this is expanding that to include the other levels of taxonomy of learning in the classroom. And it's done in a way that I personally think is very fun. So this is one example of an opportunity to connect what's happening in the curriculum for the OSHA 10 hour to what's happening in your classroom. So this is a really great example. We also have a few other examples here for you of additional classroom activities: donning and doffing, demonstration and peer check, PPE bingo, and creating a poster or a PSA. I would like to note that all classroom activities that you see here were created for this presentation, and they are not included in the CareerSafe campus. We're just handing it over to you as some bonus content for you. But these are fantastic ways to take the foundational learning and then to go ahead and expand that learning in the classroom. You may not do this for every single topic within the curriculum, but you may pick the topics that you feel are most connected to your lab or your classroom or the pathway, and you would choose those to expand upon it. Share experience. Has anyone had experience with teaching or learning about PPE in the past? Any other classroom activities that they've done that they'd love to share, resources? We all know that a teacher's best friend is all of the other teachers who share with you what you have also done in the classroom. So if anyone has anything, happily drop that on in the chat right now, and we'd love to share resources. I'm going to move on, but keep them dropping, and we would love to see them. Oh, video demo safety, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to pivot and ask you to also put something else on in there. And so spot the hazard. This is another example, and we have another hazard here. What hazard do we see? If you see it, drop it in the chat. I see that answer. We got it. It's no gloves. So we really want to consider that anytime we are handling anything, we are doing so safely, wearing the appropriate PPE. And in this instance, it is not. They are not wearing their gloves. Leads us to our next topic, which is bloodborne pathogens. This is also a part of the OSHA 10-hour General Industry Healthcare Pathway course. Just like before, we have an example here of the interactive learning that you would see inside the curriculum. And then we have our customizable lesson plans and our PowerPoint presentation bundle. So in the same way that we had for the PPE, we have the full campus at your disposal. Again, digital copies can be provided to you at the end of this session. We also have, which I've not referenced to this point in time, but it will be sent out as well. We have a classroom success kit that was built out by Caroline and team that elaborates on all of the features of the campus, how to utilize them, the benefits, all of the tools. So Caroline and her team has developed this fantastic resource, and we can also send along the classroom success kit for you that goes over the lesson plans, the PowerPoint presentation, accommodations at length, all of the features of the campus. So we have our enabling learning outcomes here. So students will be able to identify the OSHA requirements pertaining to bloodborne pathogens, recognize the common types of exposure to bloodborne pathogens, list the potential routes of exposure from bloodborne pathogens, identify the risks associated with HIV, hepatitis B virus, and hepatitis C virus, identify methods of preventing transmission of bloodborne pathogens and managing occupational exposure, restate methods for safe disposal of sharps, recount steps which should be taken in the event of an exposure to a potential bloodborne pathogen. So these are the enabling learning outcomes that you'll find within CareerSafe of what students will be able to know and do as they are exiting the course. And again, these are mapped to the terminal learning outcomes for the state level and in what is required by OSHA. So here we have some additional suggested classroom activities for bloodborne pathogens. These are fantastic opportunities if you were to do the flipped classroom and have students engage the learning outside of class, again, flex period, study hall, homeroom period, homework, and then you might choose to do some of these in the classroom as engaging activities to connect the learning to the actual classroom. So we have bloodborne pathogen bingo, a universal precaution simulation, a glow germ lab, a what's the risk matching game, Sharps safety relay, bloodborne pathogen scenario skits, infection control puzzle, bloodborne pathogen myth or fact, and a bloodborne pathogen safety poster or infographic. So then these are just some options. Didn't expect you to read through all of those, but these are just resources that we have available to you. And again, these are not available within the campus. These are just bonus content that we've created to show you how you can be bridging what students are learning in the CareerSafe online curriculum to what is happening in the classroom, and in order to keep it engaging, but also to approach those other taxonomies of learning, the higher levels of learning that we can expand beyond the foundation that's established in the OSHA 10 curriculum. Okay, if anyone has any bloodborne pathogen learning that's happened in their classroom, activities or things that they've taught or things that they've learned, we'd love to hear it. Drop it on into the chat. Take a look at what everyone else is doing in their classrooms. Any questions about bridging what we're doing in the CareerSafe curriculum to what's happening in the classroom, please drop them in the chat and Caroline will be sure to provide you some resources and answers. Justin too, as a former educator, Caroline's our chat whiz. Okay, so to recap what we covered. So why OSHA training matters in healthcare pathways. You all dropped in your reasons into the chat, and we know it's so very important. And so we're glad that you were with us on this journey as we are keeping students safe, both in the classroom as well as in their careers. We looked at the CareerSafe campus, educator features, and student benefits. We looked at the ways in which CareerSafe has created educator features and student benefits that allow for students to be successful in our one-of-a-kind curriculum. We have course pacing options that we reviewed so that you can see how it's best to implement this in a way that works for your classroom, what else you have going on in the learning and your students. We looked at those 3 teaching approaches between flipped classrooms, small group centers or stations, and the project-based learning PBL as options that you have for integrating that in the classroom. And we looked at a few examples of connecting to classroom activities to bridge the learning and to continue to build students and scaffold the skills that they have as they are leaving your programs and moving into their careers. Contact information, if you loved what you saw here today and you want to talk more, we have Justin's contact information up there. He is happy to have a conversation with you. If you would like to receive digital copies of the teaching materials shared in this presentation, use the QR code below to submit your information and select HOSA webinar under the event ID. And Caroline said you could also DM her your address if you'd like to receive those materials. So we thank you so much for your time today in discussing all the reasons why OSHA safety training is so very important for students in healthcare pathways, the ways that you can integrate it into the curriculum, and the ways that we can have fun with getting students to truly learn the material and make it real world applicable for them. And we really appreciate your time here today, and we look forward to the opportunity of talking to you, whether it's contact Justin, we see you at the HOSA conference, or you reach out to our team for more materials and support. We'd love to hear from you, and we hope to chat with you soon. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.